Hello, everybody. This is Bradley Grunner. I'm joined here today with Stu Yellen for the Moss Macros podcast number 8. And today's topic is the alpha male obsession. And when we say alpha male obsession, we're talking about the alpha male obsession in the fitness industry. Whether it has to do with bodybuilding, general fitness, CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever niche in the fitness industry it is, I'm sure you're familiar with the term alpha male and the obsession with this topic. So, Stu, let's go on and move on to the definition of what an alpha male is, whether it's amongst people or the animal kingdom.
Well, I think when most people hear the term alpha male, or anyone who's had dogs, you hear about the alpha. That's usually the I guess there's no other way to put it. The leader of the pack. I can't say that without imagining the song.
Yes.
They talk about the structure of dog packs or wolf packs. Really, the alpha is the leader. There's the beta. There's the omega, and there's like the whole breakdown. And of course, people have kind of taken it upon themselves. As people are wont to do, they will, project somehow how they envision themselves, how they see themselves. And everyone wants to be the alpha. Everyone wants to be the leader. Everyone wants to be the gorilla thumping the chest, or the lion that stays home and the other ones go out hunting. And everyone thinks that that's the ideal. If you are viewed as the alpha, you got it made. You're the big shot. You're the leader. Everyone takes their cues from you. And as we'll get into here, you'll see why people that are so into the fitness industry, so into getting people to follow them, have this deep-seated desire to project themselves, this image as being the alpha male.
Yes. Now, we'll move on to some examples. And again, as I said before in previous podcasts, we're just simply talking about the fitness industry. And when you talk about the fitness industry, of course, we're going to speak of people that are well known in the fitness industry, but that does not mean that we are bashing them or unrelentingly criticizing them, but we should go over some examples of the people who are branding themselves as alpha, meaning the alpha male concept is in their brand. Now, first one that comes to mind, we've discussed before, he seems like a very nice guy, very knowledgeable. I've actually spoken to him a few times via social media a few years ago, and he became very popular and very successful through publishing fitness books and being an online trainer as well as a real trainer. He was actually training people for quite some time, I believe, in real life, which is very important, actually. I mean, this guy had a really big history. Mm-hmm. He has done some fitness modeling. He's gotten in shape. He has a great physique. He's a handsome guy. He actually seems very personable. So I kind of take it lightly when this guy talks about being an alpha. And who we're talking about here is John Romaniello. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. I think he's a nice guy. Maybe he's just using the alpha term for a brand or trying to get a following of some type of niche market.
Well, we'll mention his book. I mean, that was his big thing.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know if it's so much as him trying to establish himself as an alpha. I mean, he had a following. He has a very, very big following. He was one of the very first, I think, trainers to really take advantage of the internet. But when he put out a book, a real pub, forget the ebooks, and all that silly nonsense. He put a real book out, and you need a name for the book. You need a name that's going to appeal to people. People know him as the fitness guy. He knows his stuff. I believe the title, unless I'm wrong, was called Engineering the Alpha.
Yes.
And if you want a book that's going to appeal to people that want to see themselves as the alpha male, as the leader, as the dominant guy, well, I'd pick that book up. If I were a middle-aged guy who was out of shape, I'd say, oh, that's me. I'm going to turn my life around. If I were some young guy in my 20s, I couldn't get girls to go out with me and I was out of shape, I'd say, oh, that's the book. Look at John. He's in shape. He's a good-looking guy. If he's listening, he's got a great head of hair.
Yes.
It appeals. It was very, very smart. I don't want to say marketing, but very clever to use that term.
Yes, of course. And the thing is, we have to understand here, amongst people that we will mention is that Romaniello is a real entrepreneur. I mean, this guy has the real entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe others that we see we'll discuss. I guess they're what we call self-employed, but Romaniello, he's an entrepreneur. I mean, he's hit it big.
Smart guy.
Yes. So, I think that he's a master of marketing. He's really adept in the internet marketing niche. And perhaps he was just naming it, again, to fill a need. That's what an entrepreneur does. And an entrepreneur fills a want or a need in society and profits from that.
Well, I mean, he also, and I'm going to mention this because it's going to segue to the other characters, the other people we're going to talk about,
exactly.
But their characters. He's written a lot of articles over the years before he put out a book. The guy never wrote articles, let me tell you why I'm an alpha male.
Right.
The guy never, he doesn't do tweets patting himself on the back. Again, it was probably a bit of marketing, but
yes.
It was a very clever, very noticeable, very prominent use of the term in the fitness industry. And, he sold books. That book of his sold.
Yes. I mean, I think that he got a big, what would you call it? I mean, I haven't published the book.
The Advance. He had a good advance.
Yeah, exactly. I was calling the Advance. Mm-hmm. I think it was.
Well, he had a big following to even get that book deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and I don't recall, maybe I should have looked this up, but I think that the Advance was way up there. Like, I think it was 7 figures, by the way.
$1 million.
Is that what you?
Dude, I don't know.
I think it was some astronomical advance. So, good work to him. Congratulations to him. He's made a very big name for himself, and I got nothing respect for the guy. I do not agree with everything that he writes on nutrition or in the book, but as far as doing what he set out to do in the fitness community, fine. He doesn't put out dangerous information. That's it. And now, as far as alpha male, should we go over other people examples of alpha males, or should we actually go into the topic of the alpha male?
Well,
concept?
I think we listed Romaniello as a what? How should we put it? Someone we respect who made use of the term. And again, we're discussing why the term is so important, so embedded in the fitness industry. Let's go to the opposite extreme.
The opposite extreme, meaning someone who uses this term in an incorrect way? Or? Well,
I think someone who, at every turn, every opportunity, is trying to convince the audience of their alpha maleness.
Okay, yeah, we could go into an example, and this is someone who we don't hold in the same esteem, maybe, or the same regard as Romaniello. We're going to talk about, again, as in previous podcast, Jason Blaha.
Blaha. We're pronouncing it correctly.
This time I'm pronouncing it correctly. Before I was pronouncing it Blaha. But I've learned from many comments.
I think it's pronounced Hemingway.
Oh, Hemingway. Okay, that's another name he uses. At first I thought maybe I shouldn't harp on this guy, but again, he's just another example that pertains to our topic. So it's a suitable person to speak of when we're talking about this alpha male concept, because the guy said himself that he is an alpha male. He said it in one of his videos. He said, if I recall correctly, maybe it's not word for word, he said, I have that alpha male image. When I'm in a room, I have a very a dominant presence, or a very presence that's felt by others. He said this in his own words. So, I mean, I think it's okay that I use his own words to describe him. Is Jason Blaha an alpha male? I don't know, because even before we go on to the other people that we're speaking of, is that, let's get this straight, is that I just want to offer this here, is that we're going to go on a side topic to a degree, is that I personally, Stu, have a pretty high standard for who an alpha male is and what an alpha male does. Mm-hmm. And I do not give that term out easily, meaning I'm not an alpha male. I understand this. I'm relatively unassuming, or, a regular guy. I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to start a family one day. I got a full-time job. I love bodybuilding. Fairly regular person. Now, when I think of an alpha male, I think of someone like George Patton. I think of someone like Henry Ford. I think of someone like...
A leader.
A leader, yes. I could go on with tons of leaders. I'm a big history buff in my spare time. I'm not going to rattle off all these leaders throughout all of history, but these were pretty noble guys. I do not think that they made their so-called brand or image of talking crap about other people constantly. I don't think that they were walking around saying how many women they attract. I don't think they were walking around saying how intelligent they are, or how industrious they were, or how strong they were. And these guys were strong. Whether they were not strong in body, they were strong in mind. I mean, Henry Ford was not known as a strong man. However, he was a major industrialist that employed practically an entire city's worth of men. And these guys, for example, the old-time entrepreneurs, lived in the communities of the people that they employed. They did not look down on them. They did not scorn them. And that's what an alpha male does, as you're saying here, as you're getting back to. Mm-hmm. An alpha male leads and actually leads by examples and takes people up, lifts them up to be like them. They don't belittle them in the way that they do this. And they're not reminding everybody about this.
Well, that I was going to say, yes. I saw something good on the internet. It said the difference between a boss and a leader.
Yes.
A boss tells you what to do. A leader works with you, and
yes.
you take the cue from him, and you do it together. One thing that I think you will see, no matter what your I guess, varying definition of the term alpha male is, I guarantee, most people will agree that alpha males do not constantly have to tell you
yes.
that they're an alpha male. It's like someone constantly telling you how smart they are. You're not.
Right.
Telling you how funny
right.
they are. Well, you're probably not.
Right. And the thing is, before we go on to our next example, I don't think, an alpha male, like you said, is not reminding people of their qualities. I mean, maybe some of the people we're talking about are intelligent. I do think that Romaniello and Blaha have... I think Romaniello is very intelligent. I do think that Blaha has a certain degree of intelligence or eloquence about him, but I do not think that people have to go around telling people how funny they are or how appealing they are in any way. And just like we discussed before, actually, let's say we go through societies where there was an alpha male or leaders. I mean, everybody from the king down to the village idiot had a useful role in society. And I do not think that people of the upper echelon, the more sophisticated class, was ever making fun of the so-called village idiot or the peasants of society. I mean, maybe they mistreated them. People mistreated poor people in the past. But really, in a structured, sane society, everybody from the upper echelon, upper economic strata, social strata, does not ridicule those beneath them. Everybody has their useful role in society as long as you're doing an honest job and being a decent human being. And also, let's get into this also. You don't have to dangle a carrot to people. You don't have to say, well, I'm so great, I'm so this, and then be like, I ain't going to tell you how I'm great. I'm not going to tell you what my diet's like. I'm going to, I got shredded, but listen, I don't got to tell you how I did this diet. Figure it out yourself. And, should that lead up to our other example of a guy who doesn't call himself an alpha, but does a lot of reminding people of his good qualities, reminding them through pictures and statements.
Well, again, that comes back to the whole, an alpha male is not going to be telling you how much he's an alpha because he's too busy doing his thing.
Yes.
He's too busy doing the things that make him alpha.
Yes.
I was telling someone the other day, some of the best bodybuilders I've ever known, these are the guys that doubt themselves. These are the guys that will, if you tell them, oh my God, you won 10 shows. Yeah, but there were the few that, they focus on that. They focus on who's better than them. They focus on where they could improve. The whole social media thing has really taken, I guess, this desire to be liked, to try to convince people to see things the way you want them to. And I know I've come back to this so many times in all these podcasts, the idea of creating a persona. That's what they're all doing. That's what
right.
Blaha's doing. Oh, if you see me in person, I look completely different. Oh, if you see me in person, well, if you see me, dude, stop.
Right, and now that leads us to our next example.
Well, this guy's a perfect example of utilizing the social media. I didn't even know who this guy was before you mentioned him to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Paul Carter. I actually, I talked about him to you several times, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, his training articles are spot on. I mean, even though bodybuilding can be a very basic endeavor, I like the way Paul Carter just lays everything out. He's really intellectual about the way he goes about his planning. I think he's just an intelligent, highly intelligent guy. I mean, but he kind of confuses me a little bit. For example, I mean, sometimes I've said to you, hey, Stu, you got to check out this article. I mean, I recommend people now that I do sprints mostly for my cardio. And there's a simple template that he put out called Conditioning for Mass. It was an article about how to increase your work capacity in your cardio routine, actually, just through the use of sprints, right? And it's a basic template about how to work up from, let's say, a guy who's out of shape to a guy who's in shape to do 20, 40-yard sprints for a cardio session, which is brutal. And I don't mean maxing out a treadmill. I mean, and I'm recommending this article to everybody in my gym. I go to Push Fitness in New Hyde Park, and I recommended several articles of Paul Carter. And sometimes even besides his fitness topics, he says very profound things about life. What do you want? How should you care for your children? How you should be as a romantic partner? Yes. And Some of them sound so sane and lucid and useful, and I actually bookmark these articles. But then he'll do this turnaround where he's like saying like, "Hey guys, I did this, and this is how I'm dieting, but I'm not going to tell you how I died." Kind of like F off, shove it for now. So he's like generous in one hand with his information, and the next one he's like, "I'm doing this and I'm doing that," and like, hey guys, like F this guy and F that guy, and this guy's mediocre, and this guy's a freaking herb. You know what I'm saying? Well, there's my Queen slang that just came out. This guy's a herb. So the thing is like, and then left over from my high school days of growing up in Queens, actually. But you know where I'm going with this, Stu, right? I'm better than this freaking chump. Like, you're not going to announce it all the time, do you? You know what I'm saying?
Well, he also made a big thing about, people, posting their progress leading up to a contest and after the contest. Yes. And he went so out of his way to talk about how he wasn't doing that when he was doing that. And honestly, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Right, because the thing is, I knew what he was up to, meaning when he was getting shredded and eating 0 carbs a day, I was following all his progress. Paul, I'm a fan of your Instagram page. I knew what you were doing. No one has veins in their head and veins running down their entire body or their arms and delts if they're not doing a bodybuilding show. I said, Paul Carter changed his writing from powerlifting to bodybuilding. I said, this guy's dieting for a show. Why the hell else would he be 6% body fat, or even a bit lower at 4 or 5%? I mean, this guy looked like an anatomy chart. He's very torso dominant, but I think his physique is good, and he's insanely strong. Stiff leg deadlifts and 500 plus pounds, but it's like, dude, you were doing that. You were showing your progress leading up to the show. You just didn't say you were doing a show. I saw your progress. You were documenting the progress. You were getting attention. I'm someone who was paying attention to you. Don't you like that? Wouldn't someone like that?
Well, that's the thing. Anyone on social media wants attention. If they tell you otherwise, they don't.
Including me, yes.
They don't. Look, when I was keeping a contest blog in 2009, yes. I put up, a bunch of crappy photos once a week.
Yes.
And that was it. There was no daily selfies. There was no, I got to write some motivational crap. It was just something to kind of keep me honest. So for someone to post a daily photo of themselves and then talk down about other people posting daily photos of themselves and needing attention, dude, it was I don't even know what to say about that.
Right, but then like, exactly, sometimes he'll post on there, and I like the post. I'm a fan of his. Paul, listening, I'm a fan. But then he'll say something like, well, this one said this to me today, and I got this compliment from this person, and this person said this to me. I'm like, dude, what's with the other people? Like, I post on Instagram. I don't got a following like you do. I just love this. I just share my enthusiasm for it. I share a tip or two here and there, but I'm not saying like, hey, this chick at work was saying I was looking good, and then this guy asked me this, and like, look, I'm more in shape than this guy. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, Blaha does the exact same thing.
Yes.
Like, I mean, just because Paul Carter actually has a decent physique.
Yes,
just because Paul Carter actually walks the walk.
Yes, he does.
Compare him to Blaha. Blaha's a joke. Paul Carter, he's a good writer.
Yes.
He's a decent powerlifter. Supposedly very good. I don't know. I'm just assuming.
Even from the poundage he puts up on other lifts that I've seen now.
Did well in his bodybuilding contest.
Yes, second place.
Has a huge following.
Yes.
Here's a guy who, again, gives people crap for doing what he's doing every single day, talking about how much attention he gets while posting so he gets more attention, and criticizing other people to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Now, and you mentioned, he also talks about, forget the whole bodybuilding thing, he talks about other areas of his life.
Yes.
Now, again, this is what he talks about his kids.
Which I think is good. I think that he's a very dedicated father.
No, I think that's right. My Instagram, my Facebook, that's my personal thing.
Exactly.
So, occasionally I will put something up with, wife, kid, but it's not to show everyone, look what a family man I am. Yes. Look what an alpha male I am.
Yes.
Dude, that's what Carter's doing.
Right.
That's what Carter's doing.
Right.
In every aspect of his life. Again, this comes back to when we first talked about social media. He's building a persona.
Yes.
He's building a character.
Yes.
He's saying, whether he admits it or not, pay attention to me, pay attention to me.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, I am touched by his family post, actually, because the thing is, me, when I talk about fatherhood, I want to have a kid one day, is that, look, I'm not divulging my whole family history here. There are some negligent people in my family, like many families in America these days. So when I see a guy, whoever he is, another guy, a bodybuilder, a regular dude who doesn't work out, who's very dedicated to his family, the posts actually touch me a lot. Like when I see Paul Carter with his 3 kids, and again, I'm talking positively. The guy's working out with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
The guy talked about what a great family dinner he had on his Father's Day. I mean, I think that's freaking amazing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it hits home with me. And that's why I actually check into his Instagram sometimes. But it's like, maybe he could be a little bit cooler about it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you've got people that are, and I don't know Paul Carter at all.
Yeah.
You got people that just come across as nice guys.
Yes.
Now, if you got Carter being like family man, super dad, on one hand.
Yes.
And then the other hand, he's, I don't know, blowing up his own head, about how great he is and other people shouldn't be doing this, what he's doing, and, how he does this, and I did this, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
Exactly.
It's like you can't be both.
Right. The thing is, he does help people. I'm seeing the progress.
No, dude, I'm not saying he doesn't help people.
He does,
Look, dude, Jason Blaha has helped people. I think they're morons, because they could have just Googled the information themselves.
Yeah.
But dude, look, we're talking about the alpha male mentality. Yeah. Dude, that's Carter trying to put himself out there like that. Okay?
Yeah.
Look, we've mentioned 3 people so far.
Yes.
Romaniello, besides naming his book that, never wrote an article tooting his own fucking horn.
Right, exactly.
And if he ever wrote anything like that, it was a little tongue-in-cheek, kind of self-depreciating.
He does do that.
Okay? So, in that regard, dude, Carter and Blaha are in the same book under this topic, man. They are. Right. Yes. I don't care how much he touched you. You got a list of people that, Blaha touched me too. Now, we're not going down the whole pedophile route here, but that's dude, there's nuts out there.
Right.
And you're always going to find people that, oh my God, that's my life.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Right. Now, the thing is, before we move on to our next little subtopic, is that I want to throw out there is that the thing is that compared to Blaha, Blaha has some useful information. Paul Carter.
Really? It's not his?
Well, Paul Carter's information is from his own ingenuity, and it works. It freaking works.
Well, that's because he's actually done it.
Yeah, the guy is a freaking psycho in the gym. I mean, his lifts are insane. I said it before. Just want to get that out there before I move on. Paul, your articles help me if you're listening. They're awesome articles. Okay. Thank you for the information.
Hey, Jason, your videos, dude, they kill me. I can't keep a straight face. I think you're the biggest fraud on the internet. I hate that you're associated with fitness in any way. And I hope you completely disappear from social media.
Yes, exactly. And Paul's a good dad, too. That we got to hit that home.
What about Romaniello? We like Romaniello.
We do like Romaniello.
I feel like we're saying goodbye, but yeah.
We're saying goodbye, we're not. Actually,
we're moving on.
But let's move into this before. We're going to move on to this, is that why is this so big into, before we go on to the PUA community, which is kind of conjoined into the fitness community now. Now, if you go on bodybuilding.com or even some of the more obscure sites on pickup artistry, you're going to get a ton of bodybuilding information on there. If you go to like this one guy has a site called goodlookingloser.com.
Oh, okay.
It's a PUA site. Well, kind of.
Well, I mean, does everyone know what this is? I mean, PUA?
Well, but the pickup artist community, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it before. They had that movie, The Game, or, you've seen these people
It was a book.
Yeah, The Game, but I think there was a movie. Was there a movie also?
I think there was an old movie with Michael Douglas years ago that had nothing to do with this.
Okay, well, I thought they were going to make a game movie, actually. However, The Game, the title of it would be The Game. I'm not sure if they did or not. However, why is this so big in the fitness community? What the heck? For example, like I said before, the guys that I consider alpha males are never involved in the fitness community. I mean, let me just throw this out there also for my high standard of an alpha male. Look, guys, maybe Dave Tate is probably an alpha male because he runs a business and employs many people in his small to medium-sized business. Me personally thinking is like, if you needed to do something monumental or like kill another man to stay alive, dude, you're not an alpha male. You're a regular guy. You're a stand-up guy. That's fine. You're not an alpha male, though. But it's like, what would this have to do with fitness? What does that have to do with fitness at all, actually?
Well, I mean, all right, let's think about it, okay? There are certain things that guys use to define themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? Certain things that I guess is expected that every guy must know. How many times have you seen the guy who really doesn't know what he's doing in the gym, but he's got his girlfriend there?
Yes.
And he's got to pretend that he knows what he's doing because he's a guy, okay? Girls automatically know about, I don't know what they automatically know about, but guys are supposed to know about cars and working out.
Yeah.
Okay? I know nothing about cars, but working out, that's important. No, but again, it's totally tied into the guy's ego. And if you're going to define yourself, the whole, I guess the whole manliness, the macho man, I mean, anyone who came up as a kid with like the action movies and stuff like that, Schwarzenegger and Stallone, there's certain things that you feel convey that I guess that image of manliness. The whole alpha male thing you have this image in your head of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, he comes in, he does what he got to do. He doesn't take crap from anyone, and he's totally buff while doing it. You know, no one steps up to this guy. Pickup Community, and again, I read this book, The Game, years ago, and it was definitely an interesting read. There's a term, was it AMOG?
Yeah.
You know, AMOG, they use it as a verb, AMOGing, okay?
Yeah.
You know, and it stands for the alpha male of the group. And if I recall correctly, you know, every group of guys hanging out, there's the one guy that the others take their cues from. The one guy who, you know, he's not out to impress the other guys.
Yes.
He knows what the deal is, and everyone just kind of follows his lead. You know, he's Fonzie. And there's how it all ties in, you know.
Right.
The everyone wants to be the guy that everyone else takes the cues from.
Right, exactly. But let's go back. Let's go into real life here. Is that I think that also is that I've seen some of these pickup sites. They're very interesting, actually. They're very insightful and also sort of depressing because it just shows how screwed up the courting or dating atmosphere is in America right now. It looks to be a nightmare, so to speak. Otherwise, you wouldn't have so many men who are, lack of a better word, in need or desperate for a woman. And when I say desperate, when I say desperate, I don't mean in a bad way. I'm saying that men need women. Generally speaking, we're talking about heterosexual males need a woman just in the same way as, let's say, a homosexual male would need or want another man, or same goes for a homosexual woman who needs another woman. I personally think, and again, I'm not a dating expert, probably the most miserable thing that some straight guy could have is not having a woman. I can't think of actually something that could make a man angrier than not having a woman. And I'm not saying that in a funny way. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but you could find an angry dude who hasn't a woman. What do you think?
You know what it is? I think if you're lacking anything and you see someone else excelling in that area, for certain people, that can be very, very frustrating.
Well, yes.
You know, I mean, look, there's plenty of people on social media that, you know, they become obsessed with other people. They parallel other things, you know. You know, I don't want to keep coming back and beating Blaha, but it's like I've seen people analyze all the things that he's stolen and tried to emulate from other channels on YouTube. Yes. And now here's a guy who, I want to be that guy. I want to be this. So he starts pretending. He starts trying to put things into the videos. And again, that's like a human nature. You see someone successful where you want to be. You can positively emulate it, or you get angry and bitter and, you know, spiral that way. But
besides envy, though, let's say, for example, not envy per se, because let's say having a woman, I don't know if having a woman is, let's say, a sign of success per se. I think that it's just basically a biological need, so to speak, for companionship and intimacy or intercourse with the woman. And that's probably, but then, like, what I'm saying here is, we're going off topic, is that here's what I'm trying to say, going off topic to a degree, is that I think men who do not have the woman think that perhaps women are so interested in muscles that this is going to be the game changer. That's where I'm trying to go. I'm not trying to veer off.
I think that makes a ton of sense. Again, you and I grew up with action movies.
Yes.
Stallone always got the girl.
Yes.
Schwarzenegger always got the girl.
But in real life, really, does it turn out like that? Is that really going to be the game changer? Because the vast majority of men that I see with a woman, just regular guys with women, their physiques are not really that special.
Well, but that's something interesting that I think you and I have seen interacting with certain people on web forums over the years.
Yes.
You know, people that are all caught up in the, if I'm totally buff, you know, guys will want to be me and women will want to be with me. And,
yes.
And it's not really about that.
Right. But I think that also it's probably, they think it's a game changer because it's not easy to control. It's not easy to get a good physique. However, once you have just the basic information, unless you have the genetics of, let's say, Woody Allen, you're going to get results. You're going to have a decent physique, provided that your genetics are not abysmal. Mm-hmm. If your genetics are, let's say, I don't know, above a 5 out of 10 scale, you're going to get a decent body. But I think a lot of men turn to this because it's easy to do. Not easy in terms of effort, but like it's fair, it's clear cut. You eat right, you go to the gym, you live a healthy lifestyle, you build muscle. Now, that is far harder than being likable to people, mm-hmm. getting a nice, robust, varied social life, mm-hmm. where you're a guy who has things to do on a weekend, and also let's say success, let's say in school or career, those things are vastly harder to control. You're not guaranteed a high salary, even if you study your ass off or work your ass off. You're not guaranteed a top spot in an office somewhere. You're not guaranteed to be a foreman if you were, let's say, working in a trade. But you see what I'm saying? No one's stopping someone from going to a gym. Don't you think that maybe that's why the guy turns to it? Because who's stopping someone from going to the gym?
Well, it can be a very, I'll say, reclusive pursuit.
Yes.
You could still have no friends. You could still be very, very antisocial. You could, live your little muscle fantasies, reading the magazines, going online, going to the gym, looking at yourself in the mirror, imagining, with the right lighting, I look just like Lee Haney, and blah, 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 and then, keep feeding yourself, taking those magic photos, and keep telling yourself, one day I'm going to do this, one day I'm going to compete, one day I'm going to walk on the beach, and every girl's going to just come running to me because, they're not going to know what a dick I am. They're not going to care I don't have any money. It's like you can. And it sounds this is a horrible, horrible example. I'm pushing all the way to one end of the spectrum here, but I'm sure there are people out there that's it. That's what they do. I know. Look, I trained for years. I didn't usually have a training partner. It was a very reclusive thing for me. I put my headphones on and I knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't need to talk to people in the gym. Of course, I would then leave the gym, leave everything there, have friends, have girlfriends, have a job, have school, and be a normal person. But there are people that don't have that, and I think any hobby can eat you up like that. But this one, like you said, it really does tie into how you define yourself, how you're trying to make yourself into what you perceive would make everything in your life better.
Right, exactly. Now, there actually is a term for this in the PUA community, which I'm not sure you heard of. It's actually called Gymcel.
I haven't heard of that.
Gymcel really just is probably a conjoined word for gym and celibate. This implies...
It sounds like a joke.
Exactly. It is kind of funny. I've seen some of these sites. They're actually kind of comical in the entire lexicon they use. It's because the word incel was standing for involuntarily celibate. So a guy who's involuntary celibate cannot have a woman, not because he chooses not to have a woman, because he's not getting a woman. Mm-hmm. He's involuntarily celibate. But in this community, they actually call someone who's spending too much time in the gym at the expense of building his life up, and included in that a woman. They call him a gymcel, and the verb is actually called gym-selling. So
okay,
it's pretty humorous actually, but isn't it pretty accurate? I mean,
I could see that. Like it. Okay, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because
I just didn't know the term. Like, oh, okay,
right. I mean, if you think about it, it actually is kind of sad. Kind of. I mean, like, a celibate, like, guy wants to get a chick, like he's not getting it. But that could happen. And really, in real life, seriously, the gym is not going to make or break someone in terms of getting a romantic relationship, because you not have to be so exceptionally built or strong to get a woman.
Just if you want to lift them up in the air.
Exactly. And so what do you have any other further words on this? Do we want to conclude with any other topics that we want to include upon this? I mean, can we say the take home is that the take home would be
I think the take home would be, if you are an alpha male, you don't need to tell people.
Yes, or
do your thing. Fitness is awesome and it should make your life better, but it's not going to change who you are.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I'm reaching a straw here. I didn't plan this out.
Well, the thing is, no, we have planned it out, but we're talking about a lot of things here, and actually a lot of this hits home with me. We do have a list of things that we go over, but
but we don't know how we're going to tie this up.
Right, exactly, because I'm enjoying this topic. Actually, I don't mind going a little further. Is that, well, my own thing always when I see me post on some of the forums that I actually like is that, let's say someone's listening to this thing, and I want to actually be helpful here, right? Let's say someone young is listening to this podcast, or someone in his mid-20s, even younger, teenager years, right? Should this person be aware that one day this hobby might not have to end, but the intensity and dedication will end? And also, my view is this, though. What are you going to fall back on when the hobby ends? If that's all you develop on and all you define yourself as, what if something in life interferes with it and you're no longer the buff guy? Meaning, this is not your signature anymore. You thought you were going to get by on it. Let's say you did get by on it. This is your signature. But what happens if you get into a horrible accident? What if you wind up having 2 or 3 kids? What if you have a job later in life that has more responsibility? Now you can't be the gym guy. What should you do? You have to turn to something else, don't you, to give you fulfillment?
Well, that's when you get your friend Brad and you start doing a podcast.
Is that what you're saying you're doing to lead your bodybuilder lifestyle?
Well, that's what I'm doing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
no, dude. Look, I mean, you and I always drop the word perspective.
Yes,
and you need to have perspective while you're in the middle of something, because, like you said, it's not always going to be like that.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I'm not the young guy, single, living by myself with 2 dogs, coming home from work, going to spend a couple hours in the gym every day, just shopping and cooking for me. Dude, that's not me anymore.
Exactly.
You know, and I guess I knew that was going to happen at some point. You know, okay.
But you have other things in your life that fulfill you.
Well, it doesn't define me. Well, luckily, I don't pay my rent from bodybuilding.
Exactly. Who does? Hardly anybody. Didn't I discuss it in another show?
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying. I always knew that.
Yes.
You know, I mean, how many conversations have you and I had where you throw out some examples and you say, well, why doesn't this guy see this and why doesn't say that? And you and I look at you and I smile and I laugh and I say, it's because we're sane adults.
Yes.
Not everyone is. And I'm not trying to rip on anyone here, but we see things for what they are. We look at the big picture.
Right.
We have to.
Right. But let's be helpful on one more point also. Okay. What should we say to someone out there who is involved in this? Let's say a guy who is in this PUA artistry, whatever it is, or some young guy who, like I said before, there's a lot of guys out there.
Trying to be an alpha male.
Or there's a lot of guys out there, you know, I don't want to sound like a doomsday guy like Blaha does, like everything's wrong with the freaking world and I'm here to correct it. I'm like the Yoda here to give you the great advice for all your problems, because I'm not here to do that. I'm here to be helpful, though, as a fellow guy into the gym, though. But a good conclusion to come to also, does this work? Does it really help? You're a 43-year-old man. We're not the be-all, end-all. We don't know everything about life. We're not the most wise people in the world. However, but does really going to the gym work with all this? I mean, are you going to definitely get the woman? I mean, you know, is it really paying off? Besides, because you were a hardcore bodybuilder. Hardcore in a context, though, not alpha. You know, you put your blood, sweat, and tears in this. What we're saying is we're not preaching mediocrity. If you want to be a bodybuilder and take it to the next level and become a pro while juggling life properly, that's some serious stuff. I mean, serious sacrifice. We're not saying don't do that. We're not saying don't even be involved in fitness necessarily and not compete, but just still take it seriously. Let's get to the gist of it. Does it work? Is it going to get you all these women? Do women generally even care that your muscles are so big? Does a boss care? Do your family care?
Well, look, yeah, and I'm sure you'll find this in like any article, or you talk to anyone who's done it before. Anything that makes you feel better about yourself,
yes,
translates to confidence.
Yes,
you know, and that could be anything. Being in shape, dude, I love being in shape.
Of course, exactly.
At the end of the day, I'm not like the largest structured guy in the first place. So, you know, you cover up in the winter. Then, you know, weather would get warm. I'd wear a polo shirt. I'd have like, dude, my arms were 18 inches. I had veins running through them. It's like, I wasn't hiding that. And people would be like, oh my God. Now, I didn't care about the attention. I didn't care about, look at this arm. Because, no one I worked with in my real job cares. No one did that. But I felt good. I would catch my reflection because I knew I had put work in. I knew I had earned it. If someone did make a comment, it was pretty cool. I told you that one story. Remember I was at the post office? Do you remember the story?
I know the story.
Okay,
I was the woman who saw you and said, "God bless America." Yes.
Yeah, I'm wearing a jacket. I'm sweating my butt off. I'm a very, very, very long line. I had to mail something, and I never really tried to draw attention to myself. But I'm wearing a North Face, one of those big puffy jackets, sweating my butt off. I know I'm wearing like a white T-shirt underneath. So, after a while, it's like, I got to take this jacket off. I'm dying. I just never wanted to look like the guy trying to show off needing attention. I take it off. I'm drenched in sweat. This white, undershirt is just like totally clinging to me. I didn't dress to go out. I just ran down the street to the post office. Two very attractive girls on the other side of the line was winding back and forth, just looked me up and down like it was a freaking piece of meat.
Yes.
One elbows the other, and right to my face goes, God bless America. I totally made my day.
Well, you see, but that's an incident where it could lead to conversation. Let's say you were a single guy in that situation. It could lead to getting a woman, actually.
It totally could. But in that moment, it was a compliment. Now, to me, this is me, taking this in, to all the work that I had put into it. it wasn't, I was born looking like this. It wasn't, I have a job that pays at home. It was, I had put a lot of work into this. And that was a nice compliment. I walked away feeling good.
Right, exactly. That about wraps it up, actually. So thank you for being with us today, and I hope you got something useful out of it, or you could at least relate to what we're talking about. Remember what an alpha male is, and
remember, you don't need to tell someone you're an alpha male. Just do your thing, and if you're good at it, people will notice, and you'll reap the rewards if you are good at something. And if you're not and you enjoy it, that's okay too.
Exactly, and being a regular guy is fine too. Exactly. So, okay, I hope you enjoy this podcast, and you will hear from us next time.